Hi everyone, I'm Brian, and for my African American Studies project, I will be interviewing a former African American professional female tennis player named Leslie Allen. Okay, this is Leslie Allen. She was the first female African American tennis player to win a tennis tournament since Althea Gibson. And first of all, I would like to ask you, when you first started playing tennis as a kid, did a lot of kids your age, a lot of your friends also play tennis as well?
Actually, when I started playing tennis, I was the only one in my neighborhood that played tennis. Tennis was considered a sissy sport. It was considered a white sport, and I was really looked at oddly because I played tennis. My mother was actually the tennis player in the family, and she played in a tennis association called American Tennis Association, which was predominantly African American. It would have been the African American counterpart to the USTA. So when I went to the tennis courts, everybody was African American. It was a warm, inviting, and loving environment. But I heard stories when those players, because I really didn't play tennis then, when they would go to the US LTA, the white tournaments, it was a horrific experience, very racist. What I didn't realize as a kid, we always played at the same two parks in Washington, D.C. As an adult, I realized, oh, those were the parks where African Americans were allowed to play. You didn't play at the other parks. I didn't know that as a kid. I just thought we always played at these two parks. So yes, it was considered a white sport. It was even so much considered a white sport that once I began to play, as a teenager, people looked at you as if you didn't have the mental acumen to succeed in tennis. That, yeah, you were a good athlete, but tennis was a thinking sport, and African Americans don't think, they're just athletic. So that was always an underpinning there as people looked at us like, yeah, you're here, you're good, but you know, you all don't really know how to think, so you really can't do this sport. So, you know, once that was sort of an unspoken theme that was around. We didn't like it, but you know, people didn't really say it, but they would say things like, "Oh, you're very athletic,"
Okay.
Instead of "You're very smart out there on the tennis court."
Did you feel that underlying, I guess, discrimination from black people, or did you feel that from white people?
I think it wasn't cachet with African Americans to play, or when you played tennis, it was a little bit, oh, you're trying to be white, you're trying to play tennis. And that was always odd to me because everybody that I knew and I respected in tennis, Althea Gibson was a friend of our family, Arthur Ashe stayed at our house oftentimes. So these were just people, and they played tennis, and everybody that I knew that played tennis was pretty much African American. So for me, it's, you know, it's always interesting to see what sport people will identify me, particularly before Venus and Serena. Tennis was never one that they would select. You know, when they would see me in athletic gear, do you play basketball? Because I'm 6 feet tall practically. Do you run track? And they would go way around the bend before they would get to tennis. Oh, tennis, really? Well, how did that happen? You know.
Now, once you became a professional, how did your view of race in tennis change, if it did or did not change?
By the time, this would have been in the 80s, the early 80s, that I was really embarking on the professional career. I just finished college, and you might get the odd sense where you felt a linesperson was calling you unfairly, but that could be maybe you're playing against a local hometown hero. Maybe it could be a race thing, but you know, you couldn't really identify it. But the one thing that happened on a consistent basis would be in a couple of situations. When you would arrive at a tournament, you arrive with your armful of rackets. This is before those giant racket bags. So your armful of rackets and your credential. Maybe you're coming to catch your credential. So the general public at large did not have in their consciousness that African American women were playing professional tennis. So when I would arrive at the gate and say, I'm going to pick up my credential or something or other, usually may I help you? Yes, I'm going to get my credential. For what? I'm playing in the tournament. Tennis? You know, it was like a shock to them. Or if there's a line of 6 or 7 of us walking into the tournament, players from all across the globe, you know, the little rent-a-cop at the gate will say, hi, ladies, good afternoon, good afternoon. Then when I would get there, oftentimes, can I help you? Wait, what? What do you mean, can I help you? You didn't ask the other people, can I help you? well, I need your ID, I need your credential, and it's basically, it wasn't in their consciousness. It didn't enter their mind that there could be an African American woman. And the same would be, sometimes you stayed with families. So someone once said, oh, I want the number one seeded player to stay with me. And then they found out, oh, she's African American. Well, that family was suddenly not available for me to stay with them. But I looked at it as, that's their loss, not mine.
Okay, so once you've finished tennis, have you seen an improvement from there to now, African Americans playing tennis?
Well, we really hadn't transcended our sport of tennis so much, Zena more so than me, but we had always been hearing about the Williams sisters. And so when the Williams sisters came along and really shot out like a cannon and have just blown up and done tremendous, they have become universal icons, known worldwide. Let's remember that Althea once told me, Althea Gibson, she said, and if you think of, the thing at the Thanksgiving that they always show that scene, it's this horn, it's called the Horn of Plenty. It's a horn and there's all this harvest stuff and fruit and apples and corn at the end, and it's very narrow at the end, at the start of it. And so Althea said, I knock down the doors so the people that can come after me can reap the benefit or reap the harvest. And so at each junction, there was Althea, it was this size, me, it's a little bit bigger, Zena a little bit bigger. The Williams sisters have just opened up for the entire, harvest of everybody. And so on the professional level, clearly we're everywhere in the sport. When I look at the sport now, besides Venus and Serena, there's probably not an American in the top 20. And when you look at that top 20, they're from all over the world. And so that's how tennis is no longer a white sport, because you got Chinese, Japanese, Indian, it's just the United Nations in the professional game. But it's still, I think more so than a white sport, as it's perceived as an elite sport. And whether you're black elite, Asian elite, white elite, that's more of the cachet, that's more of the name for tennis. Because you could go into any impoverished neighborhood, whether it's a trailer park, and they're not going to be thinking about tennis. They're going to say, oh, that's where the rich folks play of any complexion.
Here's a straightforward question. Do you think there should be more blacks in tennis?
It's not so much that I think African Americans should just run to the tennis court and play tennis. It's just the benefits that you can get, anyone can get, but why not have a leg up as a young African American person? And it's not going to be the cure-all for the ills of the world. It's not something that everybody should run to play, because you really have to want to play, respect the game, and take advantage of what's there. Because it has the benefits, it would be great if more could be given the opportunity to learn it. But just for the sake of standing out there trying to learn how to play, no, because it's hot out there. You got to run, you got to try. So no, if you don't want to be out there, you don't want to do it. But make it fun, make it accessible, show people all of the benefits, and then maybe they would want to do it. But I don't recommend it for everybody. Black or white, you got to want to be out there.
Okay, Ms. Allen, I want to thank you for doing this interview with me and interviewing my class as well. Is there anything that you would like to say to them since you're still on camera?
I just think that we're in a great place to have had two great champions like Venus and Serena to knock down a lot of the stereotypes, and I knew that they had done so. The first year they played in the final of a Grand Slam, I got my daughter up, watched this is history. Because in my lifetime, I never thought I was going to see an African American female win a Grand Slam. So the fact that happened, so that was maybe the first one was, I don't know, Wimbledon. And so by the time the Australian Open rolled around and my daughter said, well, Mom, Venus and Serena in the final, are we going to watch it? And I was like, girl, go to bed. Go to bed. They're going to do that again. So it was like, that was, even in my household, it's not going to bed. That's not so special. We see that play again and again and again. So, and now there's a whole generation of kids that have grown up only knowing African American women dominating in the sport, and even men with James Blake and Mal Washington. So it's a really unique concept to see kids like, what? Didn't people always win? Like they don't really understand how special it is. So it's nice that, the same way kids are growing up with a black president, like, what's the big deal? We got a black president. What y'all talking about? Venus and Serena won. What's the big deal? Well, it is.